Welcome to today's episode of Every Day is a School Day. This podcast aims to be a platform to discuss topical issues in education, and today we're diving deep into a topic that's on the mind of many students and families across Ireland, applying for college. We'll explore the details of the CAO system, offer tips and advice for navigating the application process, and examine the DARE scheme for students with disabilities, amongst other things, but I said I better not put all the abbreviations into the intro. So before I delve into, I suppose, our correspondence as well. Paddy loves the correspondence. So we have set up an email address, which Paddy didn't remember the last day, but it is EverydayIsASchoolDayPodcast@gmail.com. We're also available on Twitter, now X, Instagram, and Facebook. The Facebook page is now going well, and Des has a big musical coming up there in Dungarvan.
Not a musical, no, play.
Oh, play. Oh, sorry, because he was talking about TikTok at the start, so I tried to get him to do a dance and stuff, but he said no, he's an actor, not a musician as well. Would you care to tell us a small bit about the play?
A bit of advertising is great. So it's Dungarvan Dramatic Club. We're putting on Out of Order. It's a Ray Cooney farce, and it's on in the Town Hall Theatre in Dungarvan on the 20th of November, running for 4 nights, so from the 20th till the 23rd.
And you're nearly sold out, are you?
No, but just quickly get out there and buy your tickets. Fast. Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
and there's a discount code for any listeners of the podcast. It's a 0% discount code, but it's a discount code on this.
So the tickets are available on our website or in the Wine Buff in Dungarvan in the square.
Oh, very good, very good. Des is happy now. Excellent. Thanks very much, Des. And so again, before we begin, we have a lot of stuff to do before we begin today. We will like to thank our sponsors, because again today we're being video recorded, and Des is polished as always. So we'd like our sponsors, Stakelum's Work, Learn, Play. I'm not sure did they get the time machine sorted since the last podcast, but they have you sorted for everything else. So without further ado, and without any more terrible jokes on my behalf, we're going to get down to business. So the correspondence from the last day, I suppose a big thing which we were blown away with was a correspondence from a local school. They were in touch following the podcast, and they were using the podcast as well to, I suppose, educate parents about the benefits and the not so beneficial aspects of phones as well. So they're going with a community initiative that they won't buy phones until secondary school. Is that correct, Paddy?
Yeah, that's they've had a kind of a vote on it, and a vast majority of the parents have said they're not going to buy the phones for the kids until they go to secondary school. So I think it's a great initiative. Like, we spoke the last day about phones in secondary school a lot, but I suppose it all comes from primary school. So I know of kids of 7 and 8 that have phones. Yeah. Like, it's too young. So like 13 or 14 is the time. Even at that age, I still think it's young. So if they can stop in primary school, we have a great chance then when it comes to secondary school. There mightn't be as much of an issue. Excellent. Not blaming primary schools. I just think it's a parent-guardian thing when they're at that age. Don't buy them for them.
Excellent. And
a disclaimer, this is just our opinions, Pat.
Oh yeah, I'd say the disclaimer again at the end.
Just disclaimer is very important.
Yeah, I was going through things I could forget, so I've told everyone to warn me about certain things as well. So the disclaimers, this is our opinions, and I need to apologise from the last day. I said that if you have any problems, contact Paddy O'Gorman. I'm going to reiterate. Like, I remember Pat Spillane was asked to apologise in the 1980s or something, and he retracted that as well. But anyway, I'm off topic here again, so we better tighten things up, or I lose my good job here in the corner. So I suppose today it's a very serious thing. I suppose a lot of stress can go into, I suppose, making choices as well about college as well. So we've 2 experts here, and again I'm going to go with my distributionary. I think I made up a word there, distributed leadership model, and I'm going to get our guests to introduce themselves, if that's okay. I might start with yourself.
I'm Aoife, and I'm a guidance counsellor in the high school in Clonmel.
Excellent.
And I'm Emma Coles, and I'm a guidance counsellor in the high school in Clonmel also. And
I'm Paddy O'Gorman, I'm a teacher in the high school.
We're outnumbered here, Patrick.
We are big girls. So I suppose a very practical question to start off is important deadlines. If I'm thinking of going to college next year, what are the D days, we'll say, for that?
I suppose the first date is the 5th of November, because that's when the CAO opens. So that should be on your diaries, parents and sixtures, that you can make an application from that date. from the 5th of November to the 1st of February. But they encourage you to apply early because it's €30 to begin with. And as time goes on, I think it's the 20th of January that goes up in price to €45. You can make an application. It's very simple. You hit apply, you go onto ceo.ie, you hit apply, and all you need is a credit card or a debit card with you. And you fill out your personal details, make the payment, and in return you get a CEO number. And then that's kind of part one of the application. And the second part then is you use that CEO number to create an application. You put in that CEO number, your date of birth, and a password that you've created with step one. And then in that allows you into where you put in subject choice or courses that you want, and it'll also ask you questions like, are you going to apply for Susie Grant, and whether you're here or there applicable. So it kind of opens up an awful lot of further things.
Would you mind telling us, Aoife, what you mean by the Susie Grant and the Dare Initiative, because some parents listening might not know?
Yeah, so for Susie is the grant that aims to cover the cost of fees for college. So the government pay for 3,000 of the fees, and the other 3 you have to come up with yourself, or else you might be eligible for the grant. You could be eligible for a full grant, like 100% of the grant, or partial, like 50%. Susie is the company. Years ago it used to be your county councils, I think, and now Susie have taken it over. They're actually quite helpful to deal with. Like, you can log onto their website and contact them directly, and they look at covering the fees, and also you might be eligible for a maintenance grant, which might go towards covering the cost, well, not all, but some of kind of other extra costs, like like transport costs, or
that's a means test, is it, or what way does that work?
Yeah, they would look into your earnings, previous earnings, whether you're on social welfare benefits, or how much you've earned. So they kind of want things like P60s and P21s, I think, off from previous years. So it's kind of like just from a parent's point of view to get those things in order, and
the CEO, you said the 5th of November to what date was the closing date?
The 1st of February. Well, that's the first, kind of the main deadline that students work towards. If you're going for a restricted course, that has to go down before the 1st of February. So by a restricted course, I mean that there's something additional to it. So it can be like a music course might have an audition. So that has to go down before the 1st of February, because that audition happens in May or in March or April. So it opens again in May, but it's too late to put those courses down, the restricted ones, in May. So
now, if you're someone like me who's very easygoing, why would you recommend do it now? Like the 5th of November to February is a fair length of time. Is it better to do it now?
I think so.
If you do it, can you change it in between, or can you constantly change it? Yeah,
you can go back in as many times as you want, free of charge. So that's the way it should be used. A lot of students go in, they create it, they don't put down courses, and they're charged the €30, and sure, it's pointless if you don't put down any courses. Some students put down courses and they never re-enter it again. I don't know why you would do that, because in the meantime, like all schools, you go to open days, you get career talks, college talks come into our school, and that informs students where they go, oh, I actually never heard of this course, maybe I'll add that to my CEO, or actually now someone has told me about this course and I don't like it as much, so maybe I'll put it down further on my preference list. So that's another thing that we, Emma might talk about, like in terms of order of preference. That's very important as well in your CEO. So in the application, there's a lot to it. And so therefore, I don't think like a one-time entry is good, because, well, I kind of like to digest things, go away, think about them and come back again and revisit it. Or you might have missed out something first time. So it's kind of good to...
Yeah. But are you saying, Aoife, before, what's that date again in February?
The 1st of February.
So before the 1st of February...
Make an application.
So they have to make an application. That's just the basic application, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And before the 1st of February, restricted courses like music courses or art courses that might have a portfolio, an additional part to it, have to go down before the 1st of February.
And is this something you do at home with your parents or guardians? Like, is that advisable, or do most students do it on their own, or what way would they do it? I can't remember. It's a long time since I did it.
Yeah, well, we would show students it in class, show them the CEO as a class group, and there's a demo on it as well, like a practice run if you want. Equally, then students come to us individually, so we might show a student, and some actually bring in their credit card or debit card or parents' one, and they want that. But then others do it themselves on their own time with parents,
And after the 1st of February then, Emma, what's the other steps or what's involved then?
Yeah, so you have kind of up to the 1st of February, and then there's a bit of a break where you can, the CAO shuts down, but you have then it opening again, it's kind of around April, May time. May.
Yeah.
And it goes all the way through then to the 1st of July. So you have to the 1st of July to make your final CAO decision. And that's where Aoife just mentioned that there was order preference is really important, because by that stage you would have kind of got courses that you're interested in on your CAO list, but you want to start putting them in order preference. So it's making sure the course you want to do the most goes at the top. And any course that you put on your CAO, you need to want to be able to do it. So having done the research to make sure that when it comes to that day, the CAO office day, and you're looking at your offers, that you're going to be happy with the course that you've been offered. But it really, really is important that you order it in the course you want to do most goes at the top, and then all the way down in descending order, just to ensure that you're going to get the best offer on the day.
That's class. Actually, I suppose just in terms of a checklist in my head. So number 1, apply before the 1st of February. Number 2, put down plenty of courses, I suppose, and but don't go with points. So don't go with number 1 with the highest points. Go with the course you want to do for number 1.
Yeah, and just check that you meet the entry requirements. So when you're researching your CAO form, you want to make sure any course you put down that you're going to meet the entry requirements. So that can be subject entry requirements is really important. So students might want to do a course, but when it comes to it, they might not have the particular subjects that they can apply for the course. Also, grades are important. So if you're wanting to do, say, primary school teaching, for example, you need a H4 in Honours Irish. So if you're only doing ordinary level Irish, you won't be offered that course because you won't meet the entry requirements. So researching your courses really cleverly, first of all, look at the entry requirements. Do I meet the entry requirements in terms of my subjects? And then it's going into the real nitty gritty of the components, the modules on the course, the subjects that you'll be studying on a day-to-day basis, because that's what you're going to get out of bed for. Like I always say, well, you get out of bed on a Thursday morning to study and go into this course, and if you won't, the likelihood it's not going to be for you, because you're not going to have mum and dad getting you out of bed in that morning.
That really brings to mind a memory I have of a student a couple of years ago, exactly what you're saying, Emma, that I was speaking with her and she was saying, I hate business studies, one of my least favourite subjects. I said, what have you applied for in college? Business. I was like, but if you don't like it now, are you going to get out of bed when you're there? So for some reason, she had thought that it would be very different when she goes to university or to college. And I think you're right, you have to get them to remember.
Go into the detail of the modules.
And
the college websites are excellent now because they actually have the modules listed, and you can click into them and you can see the learning outcomes, how you're going to be assessed. So it gives a real detail. So you get a good picture of what the course is going to be like. And, if you're a practical person, it's very theory-based, maybe it's not going to be for you. And that's how you can start order a preference. What's your criteria for a course? Is there work experience involved in it? For me, I think it's a real key thing to have work experience on a course, especially if you're a practical type of person. You want to see how you can apply what you're learning in real life. Is there going to be opportunity for project work, or is it kind of always essays and assignments? So getting into the nitty gritty of the course, and so you know as much as possible before you start the course. And a thing I would say to students is, imagine it's this time next year and you're on a course and you really hate it, you're miserable. What did you fail to do right now that's got you in that position? And you can see them start to think and their eyes start to go, oh. And a lot of the time what they've failed to do is talk to somebody who's currently doing the course, who have done the course, or is working in that area. They just look at the web page, maybe have gone to an open day, but never had the courage to actually ask a question why they're there. So it's actually having that ability to talk to people who are currently doing the course, who have done the course, is really, really key.
Again, like what you're saying reminds me of a lot of students that have said to me who've gone on to do certain courses, I didn't realise there was going to be so much maths involved, and I suppose again that's something that they could have found out beforehand.
Yeah, psychology, a lot of people come back and say, God, there's a lot of maths in that.
Yeah.
So do you find then, like you're saying about first of November, is it 1st of November you said?
5th
of November.
Yeah.
So like kind of applying or setting it up now gets them really thinking about it.
Absolutely.
Whereas if you wait till the 1st of February, wait to that close to that date, they won't have the work done.
Yeah, I always kind of say you wouldn't go in and buy a house the first day you see it. You know, like you'd do a bit of research about location and you'd, you know, price and can you budget it. It's likewise with a course, you know, you need to do research in it. And same with what you're saying there, like engineering course is another example. An entry requirement for engineering is a lot of courses is higher level maths. And that's not there by chance. That's because a lot of engineering courses require maths in them. So if you don't like maths and you're putting down engineering, it's kind of like, you know, you just want to ask kind of further questions around that for the student just to make sure they're making the right decision.
Would you find that a lot of kids or students put down courses that their friends are, because their friends are going to that college, or like what would you say to those students?
Yeah, colleges can be kind of like trendy, you know. And, you know, I suppose, again, thinking of parents, you know, it's a costly time for parents as well. They want to make a right decision. Go visit open days, because firstly, you know, you can go to a campus and kind of go, God, this isn't for me at all. It's really big or it's really small. Yeah, they are influenced a lot by their peers, all right. It is a factor. Like, it could be a factor, a good thing, because, you know what, if you're going very far away, my degree was from Sligo. It's very, like, I'm originally from Cork. It was a big trek. I wasn't coming home every weekend. It can be a thing that you suffer from homesickness. It's your first time away from home. And college isn't all about, yes, the course, but equally there's a lot more factors to consider, like location, cost of living away, you know, who's going to do the cooking, who's doing the cleaning. And that can all be, you know, a big step for students. And it can be the deciding factor why they drop out, you know.
Yeah, I suppose, as you're saying there, for a certain student, going to the college closest to them might be important to be able to come home because they're not yet ready to move away. And factoring that in maybe as a stepping stone towards a further qualification afterwards, where they might be prepared to move further away then.
I suppose the accommodation is a big thing, because I suppose speaking to lecturers in college locally, even the timetables has changed because there's more people commuting now because of the housing crisis in the country as well, which could be another factor as well. Because I know one colleague of mine who told all the children, I better leave it to children, that they only could go to a certain city because they're local. But then with the last child, she was given a bit greater flexibility, and she went to further away as well, I would say. But I really like what you said about will you get up on a Friday morning to go in?
Yeah,
I think that's
especially after being out the night before.
Yes.
You know, you've had a night out and you're tired, but it does make a difference to really think about the modules and what you're studying. But I think Aoife's right, location is so important. And some students, like, we've got fantastic local colleges. SETU is really a fantastic college, and yet some students have a block because it's so close, but they want then the college experience of living away from home. So it is another factor to think about. You know, do you want the college experience of living away from home? Or then a lot of students I'm finding now are learning to drive, and they want to have the car and the independence so they can drive up and down. There's a big increase in people learning to drive.
Just from a university point of view to a technical college, like, I know when I was in college, I loved continuous assessment. Like, do most colleges now, whether it be university or a technical institute, do they have continuous assessment the whole year round, or is that something that students should look at as well?
Yeah.
Because I know it suited me, the continuous assessment definitely suited me when I was in college.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look at because again, if you look at the modules, you'll see how the course is assessed. I suppose the technological universities are definitely more practical, a lot more continuous assessment based, but there's still a mixture of exams in that. Yeah. So it depends on the course itself. So to really drill down and see how it is assessed. I suppose the technological universities, there's a lot more kind of supported learning, structured learning in the universities, like the NUI universities. You know, it's about independent learning, so you're going off and learning yourself, so less numbers of lectures, say, compared to a technological university.
So you when you have your students in school, like, would you be advising lads going by their personalities, and that's kind of what you look at, like?
Yeah, and technology, like technical universities nearly pride themselves on kind of preparing you for the world of work. Mm-hmm. So you might have a lecturer who's lecturing and also working, kind of 50-50. So they're like, this is real life. This is what you're learning today is actually really relevant for the career. So, like, the example I'd always give there, MTU is extremely strong for engineering. It's known for it. And it's a technical university. So there's students who get really high points who could go to other universities but choose that based on the fact that, oh no, it's very, real life prepares me really for the world of work,
So it's like picking a job. Pick a job that you feel you could do for the rest of your life, isn't it? So when you're picking a college, look at the college course that suits you, really. The course could be in a technical institute or it could be in a university.
Yeah, and I suppose because we've had the shift from the into technological universities, and you can see that there's more investment going that way. It's great news to see that SETU have now got veterinary and pharmacy. So those high demand courses where high points is starting to even out and maybe take the pressure off having because we only had one course in the whole country offering veterinary. Now we've 3 courses and they're being given to the technological universities. So it's a clear, I suppose, indication from government that we're going to invest in these colleges because they are linking in with industry and preparing students very well for the world of work.
And I suppose just as you mentioned, there are 3 veterinary colleges. I wonder, do you come across students with absolute tunnel vision that I want to do this course in this particular college, and it's very hard to get them to open their eyes to the fact that other colleges provide the same course? I'm thinking particularly, let's say, Aoife for primary school teaching, and yet there are many other places you can study to be a primary school teacher. Yeah. Is it difficult?
I was guilty of that myself, Jess, because my number one, and this kind of goes back to order preference as well, my number one was Aoife primary school teaching, and I just went and saw accommodation up there. A few of my friends were going there, and I was a very good student, I thought. Didn't think, what if I don't get this? No one asked me what happens if you don't get it. Now, I filled out my CAO, but my second choice was in Sligo, home ec teaching. And at the time, that was the only place that offered home ec teaching. Thankfully, now it's also offered in Thurles and it's also offered in MTU, but it was only all allocated in Sligo. So, I got my second choice, and further down my list I had St. Pat's in DCU, which offers primary school teaching. So if I really wanted primary school teaching, it should have been number 1 and 2, really.
Yes, yeah.
And actually I remember having enough points and meeting the entry requirements for St. Pat's and ringing up the helpline, because there's helplines for students then if it goes wrong and you're onto a guidance counsellor and saying, can I not get my number 3 because I really want to do that and I meet the requirements? And the guidance counsellor on the phone was like, no, the CEO doesn't work like that. You got offered your second choice. Everything underneath that gets deleted. And so you can't get that. And I just remember feeling, this is really upset about it. And even every year I say that to students, and yet I have come across, I have still come across, unfortunately, 1 or 2 that have made that mistake again, And
I suppose, again, it's down, if they can ask themselves, I want to be a primary school teacher, well then I suppose if there's, let's say, 5 courses in the country that offer it, then surely it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, and it's very seldom. It is it's very seldom. In my experience, anyway, it's location or the particular university might come in.
But you can't really blame the student on that either, because that's where the accommodation thing comes in. Because a student might say, I want to do a particular course, for example, in UL, and then they really like UL, so they start going, look, if I want accommodation, maybe I'll look at what else UL has to offer, and maybe I might do that. And it's like in a different department, and you're kind of going, God, there's no link between A and B. The only link here is UL.
Yes.
Now it is a fabulous campus and it does offer very good courses. But again, there should be, from looking at someone's CEO, kind of an obvious, this person wants to be a teacher or this person wants to be a vet. And I can see if they don't get this, they're going to root into it in another way.
I think that's very important, because I suppose, reflected on my own experience, I remember the CEO, and it was like the finish line of a marathon, we'll say, but there are so many different routes, we'll say, and so many different ways of going into things as well. So I think it's an important point. I really like the fact you shared a personal story. Generally, I find the personal stories, for students, they generally connect with them better. But again, there's still 1 or 2 that mightn't go with that part as well. And just, you mentioned as well about the minimum entry requirements. I know that's generally maths, but I know from speaking to parents regularly, I get an odd phone call with subject choice in first year, and there's still, I suppose, that I won't say miss, we'll say, but going around that you have to have French or German to get into colleges, we'll say. I presume there's only, is it UCCs, or if just for certain courses, engineering is not included. We'll say, could we speak a small bit on that, because that comes
There's
up a lot
probably
with
confusion out there about that.
Yeah.
And I suppose there is confusion because it's changing quite a bit. There seems to be changing entry requirements, but the NUI colleges generally ask for a third language, and now there are exceptions to that, so that's why I say always check the individual course entry requirements, because it's hard to say generally, but a third language is useful. For example, if you want to study arts or law, those type of subjects, journalism, where you're kind of going to the humanities, that type of thing, business. So you would need that. I suppose
So like our closest NUI would be UCC. I always think of them, for students, think of all the U's, the UCD, UCG, the Maynooth is another one. Actually, Shannon College for the hotel management is under, because they're linked with UCG, and there's some smaller kind of teaching colleges. But like there are exceptions, as Emma said. So like if I want to do engineering in UCC, I don't need a third language. So they're kind of constantly updating. And so students hear that and they kind of go, well, I can go to UL and do this course without the third language, and they're perfectly right. But if you want to keep all your options open, and it is a difficult decision. Sometimes students want to keep all their options open, and so they opt for the third language. But then there's some students that are like, no, I'm not great at languages at all. And so they kind of like narrowing down their options, because too many options, then it's like, sometimes it's actually good to narrow down your options, because it just gives a bit more clarity as to where your strengths are and what areas to avoid,
Like, what I'm getting from this is like this is nearly like homework for students. Like this is a big thing. You have to do your homework.
Yeah, it's almost like another subject, to be kind of and starting like during the transition year, doing the work experience, getting a taste of what you like and what you don't like, and what you don't like can be almost as important as what you do like, and kind of ruling things out. And then I always think it's like you put an explorer has a hat on you, so you don't have to have any making decisions, because I think when students have to make decisions, that's when the pressure and the stress comes in. But for like TY 5th year, and even the start of 6th year up to Christmas, be an explorer, try things out, and kind of have options, and then start ruling them out. And I suppose subject choice is the start of ruling things out.
That's 5th year subject choice is a big thing then. Would that come into it?
Yeah. So it's kind of, I suppose, students, if they go from 3rd year straight into 5th year, or if they do the TY, but it's kind of understanding what subjects you pick and how they're going to impact your choice for college and university. So if you're going to pick science subjects, then that just allows you to maybe look at healthcare, science-based courses, engineering, and again, the language which you just spoke about. So and there's some subjects that you need for entry requirements, and then there's some subjects which you don't need, like business you actually don't need as a subject to get into a business course, although it's useful to have accounting and that sort of thing done, but if you want to pursue business at 3rd level. But yeah, I do think taking time to really go through each of the subjects.
Yeah, I just think, like, I suppose when I was growing up, one of the most important things they said to me, do your homework, make sure you have your homework done. So, and I suppose mum and dad are always there, that they'd make sure I would have my homework, or they'd help me if I needed help. So I think parents and guardians do play a big part in the CAO, don't they?
Yeah, and
you need them to help you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I often say to students, like, what did mum and dad go to college, or who's at home, and what do they work as? And it's funny, some of them are like, I don't know, did they go to college? I'm like, okay, would you not ask them? Was that a positive experience? If they had their time over again, would they do things differently? It's even asking, like, the supports that aren't, not like there's supports in school, like guidance counsellors and teachers can assist you, but equally you've supports in your community, like parents, like guardians, like neighbours, can be very helpful. And also cousins. Like, I remember having an older cousin who went to college, and I just used to look up to her. And I remember she was saying, I went to UCC, and she was like, it was so big and I got lost there. That was all information for me, and also she was a role model, thinking, well, if she can do it, I can try and be like her,
Just listening there, I'm wondering, is there a difficult balancing act between a parent advising and supporting, and sometimes parents trying to maybe instill their beliefs And I suppose as parents, and a parent myself with a soon to be 17-year-old, and I suppose I often feel that, you know, I have to be very careful not to say what I think he should do, or, you know, even suggesting. Sometimes as a parent you have to be ready to be there to support, but not so much to direct it, you know.
I think it's a really important point, and something I would say to parents is kind of check your own expectations. Like, what dream or picture do you have for your child, and is that actually going to become true in reality? And sometimes there's a bit of a grieving of the picture you had for your child, and it's kind of realising that's their life. Do you know, you're there to support them, to guide them, and realising you make a massive, you're probably the number one influence on your child's decision in terms of career path that you're going to take. We talk about friends, but research is showing actually it's parents that actually have the greatest impact or influence. So how are you communicating that consciously and subconsciously, and even having a reflection for yourself? What is my expectation? And then also in terms of having a chat with your child about an open, honest conversation about, and letting them know it's okay to choose your own path. It's okay to make mistakes. I know you have to fund it, but at the same time, what happens sometimes is they start first year in college and they might say, I did this because I thought this is what you want me to do. And then they're having this drama and it becomes where they have to drop out. And, if you had that conversation with them first of all.
So in other words, you're saying it should really be the student's choice, not a parent saying, I think this course would be good for you.
As Emma said, they're the one that is going to have to get up on the rainy morning and go to college, So it should come from them ideally, and what they're passionate about and what they would like to pursue.
What then about, I suppose, a student with additional needs?
Yeah.
When it comes to the CEO, what is there anything that they can, any help they require from you? Or?
So as part of their CEO application, everyone's CEO application, they are asked if they're here or there candidate. So you can be neither, you can be both, or you can be one or the other. So to explain them briefly, HERE stands for Higher Education Access Route, and it's for students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. Okay. And DARE stands for Disability Access Route to Education. And so there's a list of conditions or disabilities that if a student basically aligns with one of them, they can apply to DARE. I think what's on the list is like hearing and sight impairment, physical disability, significant ongoing illness, ASD, ADHD, a mental health condition, because all of these things would have had an impact on the students' attendance in school. They might have had to go and attend GP appointments. It's basically saying that if you didn't have this condition, you would, probably have fared better. So we're taking that into account. And the way the colleges see it is they kind of say we want what's outside the gates to be also evident inside the gates of the college, so that we're kind of representing everyone in society. And so it aims for equity. And then, but I suppose we assist students in that application more so with DARE than HERE, because DARE, there's a section in it that the school actually, fills out. Whereas HERE, it's kind of a lot of the supporting documentation comes from the parent themselves.
Because that's about economic situations. Is it okay? Whereas DARE is educational needs.
So HERE we'll ask for things like, is there a medical card at home, or do you attend a designated disadvantaged school, or are you living in a disadvantaged area? Whereas the DARE for the disability asks us questions like, to log in attendance, or was there a significant drop in, their studies, and does that correlate with when they had the operation, or, depending on what they're applying under.
And does that DARE application start from the 5th of November as well, or when does the DARE application?
Yeah, that's a good question, Paddy. So you can tick the box for HERE or DARE when you've created your CEO account, the second part. So the first part you've paid the €30, and the second part is the my application, and in that where you put in your courses, you'll also find further down it, you'll be ticking DARE, let's just say, or HERE. And when you tick it, it opens up another part. And there are deadlines for that as well. So the first deadline is the 1st of March for both of them. And the supporting documentation that needs to go with that needs to be in Galway by the 15th of March. So again, there's a bit of work to that, and it's not something that you should leave till the night before. And it does need assistance from parents too. And if you can avail of it, it's brilliant, because we see it from our point of view, it gets the child into university. Whereas when we go to talks in universities, they tell us how it supports the child in university, to stay in university. So our main aim is to get them there, but the college utilises that information to keep them there then. So from our point of view, getting in, like, it might mean that you still have to aim for your points, but every course has a certain amount of places set aside for here and there students. So they look to fill, they can't fill those places with anyone else that doesn't have them.
So every college offers that?
Most colleges, most are signed up
and
now.
It's ring fenced for.
I had to use the term in my day, but I remember I qualified for DARE, and thanks a million to the career guidance teacher at the time. It was written that time, but I remember like that I was diligent. I had my CEO in before the 1st of February, and the change of mind was the 30th of June, I think, that time, and I got a phone call from a college saying that I'd applied for a certain type of teaching, that they weren't part of the scheme at the time, and that unless I got the points like that was going to be published on the Irish Independent, basically I wasn't getting in. Thankfully I kind of kept a close eye on it over the last couple of years, and I know people that have got into that course based on the DARE application since, I suppose, which is good to point out that there's been progress on that.
I think Aoife, you said it, I think it's only fair that is there. It's bringing them up to a level playing field.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I think what you went back to, I suppose, from my point of view, like I used to only do a half day on a Wednesday up till transition year as well for phys. So I think the fact the missing school part was brilliant that way. So I was delighted to see that option is there as well, and the HEAR application as well. Sorry, Paddy, you were going to say?
Yeah, there's, I suppose, along with DARE, then there's reasonable accommodations, race. Now we'll only mention that today because I think race is probably a full podcast.
I was just going to say the same. I think we could talk a lot further
we'll talk
about
more
that,
about race, but does that come into the CEO or?
Well, it does help us inform us. So the race is kind of the SEN department in a school will look after race, which is reasonable accommodation. So it might look at, when it comes to exams, having a shared separate centre. But though we'd kind of look at who's on that list and why are they on that list, because then we might go, well, they are actually also eligible for DARE. And I suppose coming from an all boys school, we have boys that will tell you that they are eligible for DARE, but we also have the boys that don't want to admit it even to themselves, so it's very important that we meet students one-on-one to have those conversations, to kind of a student might say in passing, oh, I have diabetes, and it's like, well, actually you're eligible for DARE, we could apply for that, so yeah, that could assist us in seeing who is.
I think reasonable accommodations is a big one. I think as well. That's one that we probably need to do a podcast on.
Yeah, and it was just for parents listening. I think that the term reasonable accommodations, a lot of parents don't maybe understand that it means any assistance that you get in the exam. So it could be, as Aoife said, a shared special centre, so that you're not in the big exam hall and you maybe can go in and out to the toilet, or maybe even if you're dealing with social anxiety or that.
Could be a scribe, assistive technology, extra time, and I know that's a big thing. Yeah. That's why I'd like to do a full podcast on that. Dyslexia Ireland, definitely extra time for students with dyslexia. So,
but I think you made a great point there, because I so often, I suppose, not even just in education but outside it, people don't know that these accommodations are there. I remember years ago I interviewed a number of participants, and this girl anyway, her hand was shorter than the other, we'll say, and she didn't have the 5 fingers or whatever, and she actually didn't know she could get extra time for practical subjects. So I think it's really good, that the awareness is out there, that there's these reasonable accommodations, and to get going on your DARE and your HEAR applications before the start of March.
Yeah, and actually colleges have said that the DARE applications year on year are growing, which is a good sign, but the HEAR are declining. So, I don't know the reason for that, but that it's very important that people are aware of these supports, and especially when they go into college, the support that's given to the students is really, really good. And even when you're in college, your circumstances can change. So I remember being in UCC, and they had 4 students who were talking about being here or DARE and how they were supported within the college. And one student, I think he entered as a HEAR applicant, but in 3rd year, I think he developed diabetes, and then he became a DARE applicant as well, and he went back to the access. It's the access college or the support, the office, and then they could assist him even further, because they were like, we need to take that into account when you're sitting exams. You might have appointments, or once you're learning how to manage your condition.
Can I ask you one question? I suppose exemptions from Irish. Does that affect universities?
You have to apply separately. So you might have an exemption, but you have to apply again through the NUI colleges separately.
Okay.
So just check. There's through the NUI website. There's a link there a form where you can apply separately.
And is that on the CAO application? No.
You tick an NUI exemption,
Okay.
yeah. But that doesn't open up the form. You have to go about the form and fill out the form yourself. So
if you have an exemption from Irish, just make sure you do apply for the NUI exemption as well.
And would that be a language exemption as well? Then
you have to. They're both.
Or are they both separate?
Both separate. Yeah.
And also UL have a separate exemption form as well. So it's dependent on the college.
So it's going back to what I said earlier. Doing your CEO is like doing your homework.
There's a lot of little bits extra to
as you
it.
said, the explorer's hat.
Absolutely,
go explore, go research
and
it.
I think another idea maybe for a podcast we probably didn't have time for today was looking at alternative routes as well.
That was actually my next question.
So I want to talk a little bit about it.
One pod.
Just because I think it's really important that there are alternative routes, and they're increasing all the time. The PLC, or the College of Further Education, are offering excellent courses at the moment, and they're based at level 5, and they're not based on CAO points. You apply directly to the college, and you just go onto any of the college websites, and it's business, psychology, science, introduction to things like physiotherapy, just kind of giving you an idea of what it's like to study these things at higher education. If you're a student and you want to try out maybe even things like how to TV production, there's excellent PLC courses around that.
Or podcasting.
Really, and you get to try it for, say, 9 months to a year. It's usually, September to May. There's work experience involved in it. And you're in a very small group. It's very practical. It's very hands-on. And again, you can use the PLC course, your QQI Level 5 qualification, to apply to the CEO and apply into a college course. So it's just another way of applying
a very real example I see in Dungarvan now is the amount of people in Dungarvan College. I think there's a pre-nursing or something along that line.
Yes, that would be very popular.
And I see a number of students then gravitate towards SETU to do nursing.
That's a question for you, I suppose, as a counsellor. Like, it is a lot of pressure for young people to pick the course and do the CEO. Like, would you have a lot of clients with?
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say to a student?
Yeah, I suppose one of the things, and I know we were talking here about kind of having an idea of what you want to do for the rest of your life, but I do think for some students who are really struggling with anxiety about this or the pressure of it, sometimes it's better to pull it right back and say, let's not think about job for the rest of your life. Let's just think about a course you would enjoy to study.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And if you can kind of just shift that focus for them, and I'd even encourage mum and dad at home to shift that focus from that and say, look, it doesn't matter as long as you go and study something you think you'll enjoy. Because I mean, the amount of people, and I'm sure we're even sitting around this table, that did a certain degree and then ended up working in something completely different. I'm thinking of what my wife studied, for instance, and out of a relatively small class in a science area, I think only 2 out of the 22 are now actually working in the field of science. They've gone on to do completely different things. So I think maybe, as you were asking the question, Paddy, about people that might be struggling, I think it's to pull it back and say, right, just choose a course for next year.
Yeah.
Don't think this is for the rest of your life.
100%. And that's where sometimes the PLC courses can come
Yes.
in. And it's just about kind of going, what do you want to experience? What skills do you want to develop? Kind of get curious about yourself. What do you find interesting? And then they can start kind of going and saying, you don't have to make the decision now. This is going to change. And as you go through your degree, it's going to evolve. You're going to meet new people, you're going to have new experiences that will send you in different paths, and it kind of create an excitement around it rather than being something that's fear driven. So it's kind of like something that's more exciting.
And then apprenticeships is another thing, isn't it? That you could do another podcast on. But
Absolutely.
Are they growing in numbers?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, they're adding apprenticeships all the time, and I think apprenticeship is an excellent choice. Working and learning model, and it suits a lot of our students. It's very practical, hands-on. And I can see it. My own husband is like a welder, and there's plenty of work there. There's
Making
plenty,
good money is what they're saying.
So
There's
like,
a smile coming on your face. I'd say he's making a few bob.
but like, it is an option that we forget about. I think where there's a bit of snobbery there in terms of Ireland in general. Like, are you going to college and what course are you doing? And it mightn't be the best route for the student. And also equally, you can always do an apprenticeship and then go back to college later on. I'm thinking of a lad I knew who was very bright, but really wanted to do an apprenticeship and did an apprenticeship very successfully. And then later on, the employer turned around and said, we want to send you back to college and add on and become an engineer of this type of, apprenticeship.
And I think even going back to what Emma was saying earlier about the parents' own expectation, I suppose I'm just thinking back to a dad that I was aware of who, not my own father, but who had built up in his head his daughter was going to become a doctor. And when she did her leaving cert, she did extremely well, but he turned around and went, oh, I'm disappointed, I thought you were going to be a doctor. Whereas she had absolutely no interest at all in that area. So I suppose again, the child might have no interest in going to college for parents to accept that's their decision.
Super. I think that has been brilliant. To be honest, I thought the CEO was complicated before, but I think there's so many different routes. I mean complicated in a good way, but just as Paddy said, get the homework done. I really like the fact that, and as you I think summed it up brilliantly there, that sometimes we can get transfixed with the job at the end of it, we'll say, but I suppose all top level sport at the moment it's all about the process rather than the product. So like there's no point, I suppose, thinking of I'd love to be that at the end of it, but if you're not going to go in every morning and do the course, so I suppose an iterative approach in terms of look at the course first and go from there. Paddy, I think you're right about the homework, we'll say. So CEO opens on the 5th of November, you need to apply before the 1st of February and pay your €30, but it's not and it's not a thing that you just do it once and forget about it. You can change, you can alter, but just once you've applied is the most important thing. Then in terms of the there and the here applications, first of
March and the 15th of March are the deadlines for that. But you'll be asked them in your CEO, so it's all included in it.
Excellent. And
so over the midterm break now at Easter or at Halloween would be a good time to start researching and reading up and
I think as well, like students should look at it as an exciting thing to do.
Absolutely.
Rather than a pressurized thing, look at it as an exciting, it's just next stage in their lives.
What could I do? I was curious,
That's excellent. That's a very important part as well. Usually Des calls on Norma Foley for funding, but now he's given students homework on the podcast actually.
I think Norma could be out electioneering as of tonight. I think they're due to call an election, so we leave poor Norma alone. I think she'll be busy.
That'll go down well in the polling station as well. But no, I think those dates again, 5th of February, 5th of November, 1st of February, 1st of March for the deer. And I suppose the big thing with the deer, as you said as well, that some students might stand out, maybe that they are once. I mean stand out in a positive way that might come to mind. But there might be other people within the school as well. And I suppose that inclusive aspect of colleges, as you mentioned there as well. And I think we're fairly good on that. I really want to thank Des. I think you summed up the part about the fact that it's to take the anxiety away from it. It's one stepping stone. There are so many different courses, and it's one part of your life. You might do 2 or 3 different things later on.
Like you, Pat, in fairness.
I'm only qualified as a private.
Yeah, but you're doing 7 different jobs, so whatever qualification you got, you're doing okay.
I managed the way I will say, but I really want to thank. This was incredibly insightful, I suppose, from myself coming from. I suppose the primary side of things as well. I suppose I remember the CEO from when I filled it out, but I suppose I often get phone calls in first year that Johnny doesn't like French, but we're worried about college. So that was, I suppose, something I wanted to ask as well. But you really summed up the whole process so well as well. So thanks a million for your time and for coming on the podcast. We'll have you back again for the reasonable accommodations and some of the other ideas we came up with there. So thanks a million for that.
Thank you.